All right, yeah, go on, all right. Turn up, but they said no, we'll have to turn up now we're here. Well, maybe.
Good evening.
And you're sure of a big surprise.
Hi there, I'm Woody Bear, yeah. Just look at these fabulous attractions, rides and shows, and there's so much that's new this year. American style, family fun, excitement and adventure, whatever the weather. Pleasurewood Hills is bigger and better value than ever.
Your biggest day out ever.
Off the A12 between Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft. You'll have a nice day.
Ladies and gentlemen, direct from the Royal Opera House, Swaffham, please welcome Mr. Joe Larter.
What have you let yourselves in for? Ken Dodd was here in June and he did 5 hours with hardly a break. We're going to see if we can break the record tonight. We're here to launch my autobiography, which is Serendipity, as you know, a journey with Joe Larter. Serendipity means happy accidents and pleasant surprises. And certainly I've had quite a few of those. Originally, the book was intended for my family, but when I got down to the detail, I was persuaded that it should be for East Anglia and particularly for the Woody Bear fan club. Tonight, it'll be 50% me and 50% about Woody Bear. I will be guiding the tale along, and my daughter, number 2 daughter, Alice, will be helping me with readings and some of the events. So would you please welcome Alice on stage. In the last few weeks, Pleasurewood have unearthed the original 1988 promotional video which we created. Please welcome Alexis Camelin, who is going to come on stage and introduce what he found. You're going to take your microphone. You're going to take Alex's microphone.
The film you're about to see is the original 1988 promotion video for Pleasurewood Hills. This tape was rescued by our team at Pleasurewood Hills a few years ago. This year, as part of our 30th birthday celebration and the creation of our digital archive, we had this converted into, for the children, into this. We only had it converted a few days ago and nobody was sure what was on this big film that had been salvaged from the bin. What we now know is that it's a truly beautiful video of Pleasurewood Hills back in 1988, only 4 years after its initial opening. In 1988, Pleasurewood Hills was bringing in 550,000 visitors a year. Wow. Just by watching this video, you will understand why Pleasurewood Hills was so popular at the time. Of course, we could question to why we have over half of those guests have disappeared from the park today. We could blame the low-cost airline, we could blame our competitors, but one of the main reasons for this decrease in visitors' numbers is surely due to the lack of love to the place in recent years. Over the last 4 years under new management, we have worked extremely hard to get Pleasurewood Hills back to where it should be, with the emphasis on family fun and quality experience. This will continue into 2014. And here we are, thanks to Joe, with his crazy idea of building an American-style theme park 30 years ago in the east coast of England. Who would have thought about it? Thank you very much, Joe.
Come to Pleasurewood Hills today.
A real mean bug and rides that are tops. Indoors and out, the fun never stops. Pleasurewood Hills is really hot family fun. Just pay once at the gate. All the main rides, shows, and attractions are free the whole day.
Whoa there! Shucks, a little old bear needs more time than that to see what's going on.
Sorry, Woody. I was just flipping through some of the fun we've got lined up at Pleasurewood Hills American Theme Park. How's this for you? A gentle chairlift ride to take in all the scenes.
Yep, this is more like it, the low down from high up. Hey, that's me down there showing the kids Super Screen Cine 180.
Morning, folks. Have a nice day.
There's my old pal Clarence. And there's those vintage buggies. That's the way to drive Dad round the bend.
Or drive him crazy at golf.
Will you get a load of that? There's Clarence again. Sure can't keep a cool cat down.
Ahoy there, me hearties.
Heck, I enjoyed that, but sure has made me hungry. Better show 'em all the barbecue.
Good idea. Just smell that Wild West barbecue. And we've got so much more besides. A real international cuisine here. American funnel cake, Italian pizza, and traditional English cream teas, as well as all you could ever want in popcorn and ice cream.
Is that real nice, Mom?
Come on, let's take some popcorn to Woody's Magic Music Hall, There's so much going on indoors at Pleasurewood Hills that even the British weather can't spoil a day out.
I just love this bit. I just love this bit.
In this haunted haven of spooky specialities, gaze now at our ghoulish guests.
And you can't get cold tombstones. It ain't no sin to take off your skin, dance around in your bones.
Seen enough, Woody. Let's go see Bimbo.
Bimbo? There's that sea lion again. Clever critters, aren't they? Come on there, Bimbo. Charlie's pretty happy. Just look at him clapping. And Benson, too. Shucks, this looks like fun. Let's see that again.
Looks like they all enjoyed it, too. Now we're in a spin. Now that's what I call a great ride.
Say, this must be the new Magic Haunted Castle.
Filled with lots of ghostly surprises and things that go bump in the night. Let's go outside again.
Pardon me?
Oh, sorry. Let's go outside and show the good people Annie. You know, folks, Pleasurewood Hills is so big, we've our own rail system. And here she is, Annie Oakley. She'll take you from place to place so you don't miss a thing. An American theme park is about as far as you can get from old-fashioned traveling fun fairs and amusement arcades where you get all sorts of people coming in. Pleasurewood Hills is just for families. Pay only once at the gate, then all the main rides, shows, and dozens of other attractions are free to enjoy in complete safety all the livelong day. You've seen some of the rides, but we've got other things, too. Things you can do.
There's things to climb on, roller skates, slides, a steep one for big kids, and an easy one for little kids and grown-ups. Yeah. There's animals to see and touch, live music and street parades with me and the clowns. There's a mile-long train ride with 2 great locos, a modern American Amtrak, and one of your famous engines.
A day out at Pleasurewood Hills is a day spent laughing and learning, sharing and daring. And, like we said, a day out at Pleasurewood Hills is a day out that really lasts all day. In fact, a day ain't really long enough to have all the fun there is to be had here. But heck, you can always come on back. Lots of families have visited 2 or 3 times already, and they always find something new. What's a day here mean to you, Woody?
Oh, fun! Pure, neat family fun and all those new friends to make every day. Remind them what they've got coming.
Come to Pleasurewood
day.
Wow! Ooh! Yeah, man! Yummy! For hot family fun, indoors and out, it's Pleasurewood Hills. Always something new. Pay once at the gate, and all the main rides, shows, and attractions are free to enjoy all the livelong day.
If you like making kids happy as much as I do, bring them to Pleasurewood off the 812 between Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft.
I don't think anything I could say could describe what we created better than showing you that. So Alexis, thank you very much for putting it together and bringing back the actuality of what we created in those peak years of the late 1980s. Pleasurewood has varied effects on different people. And a few weeks ago, through that international dating agency, Facebook, I met a man from Thetford called Samuel Ball. Sam cannot be here tonight, but he is the absolute #1 fan of Pleasurewood and has the most amazing collection of Pleasurewood memorabilia from the past years. Have a look.
My name is Samuel, I'm 23 years old. I've lived in Norfolk my whole life, and Pleasurewood Hills to me has been a place where I've always felt at home. It's a real family-themed park. A lot of the time you find theme parks these days that don't have that aspect anymore in them. And Pleasurewood Hills, throughout the time, through different owners, through different rides, shows, etc., it's always remained that family feel, and that's what I love about Pleasurewood Hills so much. Growing up, I went to Pleasurewood Hills most years. I think I've been every year of my life, and I developed a sort of interest in collecting Pleasurewood Hills stuff, mainly for the memories, the happy memories that it gave me as a youngster and into my adult life. And I've collected loads of stuff over the years. eBay has helped a lot. A couple of people at the park have also kindly donated a few things. And I just love reminiscing about the good days, looking forward to what Pleasurewood Hills is going to do in the future, and really thanking Joe for what he's done and his vision that started so little, and as you read the book, accidents, happy accidents, lucky accidents that have created what is one of my favourite places to visit in the world. And I just wanted to say thank you, Joe, for everything that you've done to make Pleasurewood Hills what it is, and for the current owners, and who knows what's going to be happening, but I can't wait to read the book. I can't wait to hear all the stories about you personally, as well as what you did for Pleasurewood Hills and the surrounding areas, and what impact and legacy you will leave in East Anglia for what you've done for Pleasurewood Hills. Thank you, and I know I'm a bit of a nutcase, but Pleasurewood Hills is fantastic, and long may it last. Thank you.
There are some amazing people about. Now, whilst we're on old Pleasurewood, can I mention that two people who were the original Woody Bear characters and did so much to develop his character are also here tonight. The first is Jane Sampkin, who was the first Woody Bear, and the second was Sue McElroy, who was affectionately known to all of us for all the years that she was doing the job as Woody Sue. Thanks, both of you. It was tremendous to see you develop that character. Now, Sue wrote me a note just a day or two ago, and I particularly liked this bit. Sue was the Woody when the Queen came to Lowestoft. She says, "Being Woody Bear was a very exciting and memorable time for me, meeting famous people, the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh being the most memorable. One of the security guards warned Woody to behave himself, because if he was naughty, the armed guard on the roof in the shopping centre would shoot him, and he would be made into bear burgers for their dinner." Woody behaved himself. So let's get to the book. Where I started, Martham, centre of the universe. On screen, you've got this gentleman here. In the 1700s, the Larter family were from South Norfolk, and my mother's story, Smithside, was from Horning. The man you see on the screen is great-grandfather William Story Smith in about 1880, taken from another book about him with a couple of amusing stories. On the Larter side, in 1760, William Larter was the landlord of the World's End public house at Mulbarton, which still stands today. 250 years later, we have been living as a family just next door in Hapton for the last 15 years, and until recently had no idea of the connection. And so I was born in July 1939 with a twin sister, Mary, who is here tonight, just as the war was breaking out. We didn't cause it, but we were there. And we spent the war tucked away in a shared rented farmhouse by the marshes at Moorgrove Farm at Martham.
Situated in the centre of a real working farm, still with cart horses to plough and steam traction engines to thresh the harvest, the shared house had neither running water nor heating other than one coal fire. A portable paraffin stove in the scullery for Mother to cook on, but no electricity or gas for lights or anything, and I remember pump-up paraffin lamps hissing away. Weekly bath time on a Friday was a tin bath in front of the fire filled from a coal-heated water boiler in the scullery, and the water very carefully shared.
Having read a draft of the book, somebody said to me the other day, "So you lived in poverty?" And I said, of course, it was no such thing. It was just the normal way of life in the country in those days. We as children had a wonderful time. Father was working on the damaged boats that came into Great Yarmouth during the war and was in the original Dad's Army in Martham at the same time as growing his building business. Money was always tight, but at last he could exchange his motorcycle and sidecar. By the time we moved from Moorgrove, Father had a small Austin car, affectionately known in the family as the Doodlebug, after the unmanned, unguided German rocket with the same nickname. A rocket might be fired at Birmingham, but dropped down on Leicester. The only certainty being that if you heard its familiar drone like a motorbike without a silencer, and then silence, you knew you were pretty near an enormous explosion about to come. Terrifying. I don't think Father's driving was as bad as that, but there were no safety belts, and I know the doors tended to open by themselves as you rounded a corner. We moved on to Winterton, where I spent most of the rest of my childhood, and my mother lived there until she died. We went to our first real school, learned to catch shrimps on the shore, and we were there for the Norfolk whiskey galore moment in 1948.
The whole country had been told there would be no oranges in Britain for the Christmas period. The following weekend, a boat passing near the Scroby Sands and loaded with boxes of oranges was wrecked. Scroby Sands are just off Winterton and a wind farm based today. The beaches of Winterton, Somerton and Horsey were awash with boxes of oranges, and our local PC Lovell and the customs officers forbade anyone to collect them. Of course, just like the whiskey bottles of the Whiskey Galore film, the boxes of oranges all mysteriously disappeared every night soon after they floated in. Happy Christmas.
Now, my father, who was not a great one for openly showing love and affection, there were not too many hugs and kisses around with him, so it was an absolute delight to discover only in the last few months a letter he wrote to my mother in 1936, before they were married. She had gone with her mother to New York and Los Angeles by boat to visit an aunt who had emigrated there 4 years before. If you think about it, 1936, quite a trip for two very unsophisticated ladies from Horning. Father and mother, as teenagers, would meet at what was then Drake's Dance Hall beside the Bridge Hotel at Portaheim, where Saturday dances of the day took place.
He writes, "I miss you very much and am looking forward to your homecoming. If I could hear you just once, that would help a lot. I went to Potter last night, but I did not dance. The old dear with glasses was there and dancing with some fellow and making quite a fuss of him, as I will of you when you come back. This afternoon I'm going on the river fishing. Will you come? I don't suppose we would do much fishing. Well, dear, I can't write any more now, but I have lots to tell you when we meet.
We thought that was quite charming. Now, look at him. Life moved on. Mary and I had to face proper schooling. For me, first Winston, then Duncan Hall at Scratby, where you see me here on my first day, and then King Edward VII Grammar School in King's Lynn, where I boarded. I went by steam train each term, Martham, Mendleton Constable, Corpusty, and all those charming pre-Dr. Peaching stations, all the way to King's Lynn. For those of you who have never had that steam travel experience, I have tried to think of how to describe the melodic sounds, the hiss of the steam, the clickety-click, clickety-click that the passengers heard as the train gathered speed. But then I remembered the start of the T.S. Eliot poem, Skimbleshanks, the Railway Cat. There's a whisper down the line at 11:39 when the night mail's ready to depart, saying, Skimble, where is Skimble? Has he gone to hunt the thimble? We must find him or the train can't start. Now, if you say that in the sing-song way that I've just done, that gives you exactly the sound and the feeling of a steam train moving out of a station. At school, filling in the weekends was a task, as I was not really into sport. But then I was allowed to have a cycle, a racer. I had given little thought when I said one Friday afternoon I would be cycling home for the weekend. A map, a rain cover, a little money, and I was off. 60 miles, 6 hours each way, stopping to see my grandparents at Horning, and then back again on the Sunday. Now, I've got two men to introduce you to, really. A great friend of my father's, and likely they met in the same Drake's dance hall, was Sidney Grapes, who lived at Potterham. Together, Sidney and father would come over to see me at school, take me out to see the football or something like that, and then out for a meal. Sidney rose to a great local fame as an entertainer at dinners, and as the boy John, with his wonderful Norfolk dialect letters to the Eastern Daily Press, writing about an imaginary farming family. Sidney, of course, cannot be with us from so long ago, but one man keeps alive the Norfolk dialect and the memory of Sidney. Would you please welcome Keith Skipper, who is likely already known to you for his writings and his talks.
God blast, I come abroad. Thank you, my dear boy, for arranging the visa. Have you noticed how you can suffocate, but you can't Norfolkate? Something we must put right. One of my heroes, Sidney Grapes, a wonderful man, as Joe mentioned. I never met him, and he still lives very large in my life. And I had the pleasure of republishing some of the Boy John letters. And I thought it'd be quite nice to share one on this auspicious and cultural occasion, and one that appeared in the Eastern Daily Press about this time of year. And God bless me, I found one for October 1951, Festival of Britain. And it's got that lovely topicality to which Joe refers, the countryside, and this is called the Harvest Frolic. Now, I shall read it nice and slow, because that's exactly how that was written. Dear Sir, we had our harvest Thanksgiving service last Thursday night. The church was beautifully decorated with corn, flowers, fruit and vegetables. Aunt Agatha, she'd help with the flowers. We all went. Aunt Agatha took Mrs. W too, but Grandpa, he never sit next to her. When we come out, Aunt Agatha say to Mrs. W, what a splendid service. What a lovely sermon. Mrs. W say, yes, but I don't think the onions and taters were as big as last year's. We had a rare do of the Saturday night. Our master gave us a harvest hum, what Grandpa still call a harvest frolic. After dinner, We got the old fiddle out and the concertina had gone, and we had a rare sing-song. Grandpa, he sung Tom Bowling. He got an encore, so he sung it again. We finished about 10:30. Just before we come away, our master, he called us to one side. He gave Grandpa a drop of rum, Aunt Agatha a glass of port, and me a bottle of pop. When we got home, Aunt Agatha thought about Mrs. W, because she should have come with us. Well, I got on my bike, went down to Mrs. W. There wasn't no light, and her key that still hung on the back of the shed door. Aunt Agatha was proper worried, so me and her went back to our master's. He say, well, that's a rubbin', surely that old fool ain't still in the barn. Well, he got a lantern, we unlocked the barn, hunted high and low, then last of all, we found her sound asleep on some corn sacks, what had been put up the corner. Her false teeth lay alongside on her. We shook her and we woke her up, and she fair dazed, but she come to after a time. Aunt Agatha picked her false teeth up and put them in her handkerchief. And after a time, we got her over the old barn door trossel. We got her home all right, and Aunt Agatha put her to bed. When we got back, we found Grandpa sound asleep in the chair. We doesn't tell him nothing, so Aunt Agatha put her handkerchief into soak and went to bed. Well, fare you well again together. Yours obediently, the boy John. P.S. Aunt Agatha, she say widows aren't the only ones who have late husbands. Now, a rare lot of people used to cheat when these letters appeared in the EDP, my parents included, and they used to turn to Aunt Agatha's latest philosophical gem before they read the letter. And I thought that would be a nice tribute tonight to all those who remember the boy John, to share with you some of my best Aunt Agatha she say. Aunt Agatha she say, the only ordinary people in our villages are them what think they aren't. So she'd quite clearly been to Kessingland, hadn't she? Grandpa, he say, salt is what make taters taste nasty if you don't put it in. Here's one for the Women's Institute. Aunt Agatha, she say, she's a very wise woman, what say nothing at the right time. But here's one for the boys. Aunt Agatha, she say, all husbands are alike, only they have different faces so you can tell them apart. Aunt Agatha, she say, never hit a man when he's down, he might get up again. Aunt Agatha, she say, reality is when you leave dirty dishes in the sink and them buggers are still there when you get home. Aunt Agatha, she say, a threepenny bit ain't so good as sixpence, though that do go to church more often. That's a slow burner, that one. And finally, in these much more emancipated times, the last word goes to Grandfather. Grandpa, he say, if women know so much, how come they ask so many bloody questions? Good night.
Keith, thank you very much. I feel so lucky to have got him to come along tonight, and particularly to be able to get him a visa to come across the border from Norfolk into Suffolk, which is difficult these days. Now, I left school after my O-levels with no thought of anything but getting out into real life. Real life in 1955 was there where rationing had just ended. A rent for a two-bedroomed house was 42p a week, and the rates in the water for the same house would then cost you about another £3.50 a year. National service loomed, and I decided to go for a 3-year short service commission. Captain Larter.
10 weeks basic training, some interesting officer training stuff, and we were given a week off to travel home. And that was my first true experience of disaster, and what a disaster it was. The family, in writing to me at the camp, had made no mention whatsoever that father, at the age of 48, had suffered a massive stroke and was confined to bed. He partially recovered at one time, but then had a relapse, lost his power of speech, and was never able to speak again.
How, I wondered, could the family survive? National service was in its terminal stages, and the army were very sympathetic to my dilemma when I told them. Maybe they'd all so spotted that perhaps I wasn't army material. 12 weeks after I left home, there I was back again at the age of 18 to learn to be a builder. Workmen, customers, suppliers, everybody helped enormously, and we got through.
1961 had crept up on me with father deteriorating slowly, and now, at age 22 years, I had the good fortune to have a mentor turn up on the scene in the form of Robert Ludkin, a customer who lived at Somerton Hall. Bob sat me down one day and asked, "What do you really want to do?" I told him I would like to build houses on a small scale, but my problem was I had no capital with which to buy land. He told me to find a piece of land for a few houses and he would lend me the money, just like that.
That man, seen there with his daughter, it's the only picture, I'm sorry to say, we could find of him, but John down there knows him as well as I do. That man and the subsequent involvement we two had together until he died was the making of the first part of my business life. Married, with my first two children, Andrew and Rebecca, who are also down there. I can't see you, but you're there. And developments happening all over the place, and I started to move out into the wide, wide world away from Winterton. I've called this book Serendipity because so many happy, life-changing events did happen to me absolutely by chance or accident. Two in particular completely altered my life pattern. We took lovely holidays, including the West Indies one year. Our first stop was Antigua, and going to the hotel from the airport, our taxi came across another which had broken down. We gave the passengers, Joyce and Basil Bloodworth, a lift. A serious, serendipitous moment affecting my future, perhaps more than any other event. That Bloodworth meeting led us to see them when they were living in Switzerland, and later for me to rent a chalet nearby in Chateau d'Ay, to swap it with people who lived in the Bahamas and Florida, and on to buying houses in the USA and my getting involved in 2 USA businesses over the next 40 years. Wherever I went, I was always looking at property, which took me to Malta and Wales, and most importantly, close to home here at Gunton Hall in Lowestoft. We had a couple of takeovers of the company, and then Bob Ludkin and I were able to buy back the leisure developments for ourselves. Bob Ludkin died, and I had to then get down to the serious developments on my own, including the bit you most likely want to hear about most, Pleasurewood Hills and Woody Bear. Keith Sparks, who sadly is no longer with us, was the man who introduced me to theme parks, and with his skill, we created Pleasurewood together. Hugely difficult at the start, with no big numbers turning up after opening in June 1983, until August the 2nd that year, when suddenly 2,500 people came in one day, and we never looked back. 240,000 visitors in that first year, and at the peak, over 500,000 in a year. All on a site with 50% of its hinterland, the North Sea. So how did it all start? Well, the very first start was the original Dip Farm leisure complex next door to what is now Pleasurewood Hills. We took some land over from Waveney Council and gave Waveney sporting facilities in return. Waveney had discussed it all for so long that when I actually made it all happen, I was described in the Lowestoft Journal as the godfather of Lowestoft. It just shows you shouldn't believe what you read in the newspapers, but at least they didn't call me fairy godfather. The man who literally started the whole thing by digging the first plug of soil with an excavator was Nick Brighouse, who's down there somewhere with us as well, who was then the chairman of the Waveney District Council and who is here tonight. Then I took over and it was down to me.
Whilst I was then thinking on exactly what to do, I read in the Eastern Daily Press that John Edwards and Robert Happy Hudson were going to build the longest miniature steam railway in the UK at Great Yarmouth. Serendipity again, and they're both here tonight. They agreed to bring their railway to me, and a month later on site, they called me to ask where would you like us to put the railway station. A real wake-up call, because I'd given it no thought. But as we stood in the empty fields, I said we should steal an idea from Disney. Disney developments have a main street and a square with a railway station. So stakes were planted in the soil there and then, and that is how the obviously long thought out design of Pleasurewood Hills commenced.
In that first very thin on the ground year, we were learning every day. We'd taken on a massive venture, perhaps without really understanding what we were doing. What did people think of what we had provided, and what did they want? Because we certainly knew, as yet, we had nothing like enough.
We were also terribly keen to find out what our customers thought of us. We knew no better way than to give out opinion forms with tick boxes and a space for comments. Our main advertising slogan was "Come to Pleasurewood Hills, your biggest day out ever," a rather extravagant claim to make at that time. One gentleman left us a message giving us no doubt of his opinion and putting us in our place. His comment was, "If I have just had my biggest day out ever, then I have very little in life to look forward to." Very amusing, but he was so right at that moment.
And then my second most life-changing serendipitous moment arrived at Pleasurewood in the form of the Bembom family from Holland. My very dear friend Hank Bembom is in the audience here. Bemboms owned theme and holiday parks in Holland and France. Father Bembom wanted to know if I had any plans for steel thrill rides, and I had to say that with no cash left, they would have to be for the future. He said for us to please come to their home base in Slagharen in Holland, and he would have a suggestion for me. Saturday, the same week, found my wife Betty and myself in Holland, a lovely welcome, and told to be in Father's office at 10 a.m. the next day. The next day, another, or what would turn out to be many, many cups of coffee in Holland and in England, and the question, "Mr. Larter, would you still like to have some steel rides?" "Yes, Mr. Bembom, but like last Wednesday and yesterday, I still don't have any money." Whereupon he put down on the table pictures of 5 very large thrill rides worth about £3 million, whereas at that time I'd begged, borrowed everything I could and spent under £1 million on building the whole park. He said he would send them over, install them, and run them for the first season, charge me a modest rent, and if it didn't work, he would take them away again at the end of the season, and all I had to do was go home and double the entry price of the park from £2.50 to £5. Along with Hank Bembom here tonight is Jan Takman, who was the first engineer they sent over, and he actually stayed on and married into Lowestoft. Pleasurewood would never have been the success it has been and is today without the help, support and advice of the Bembom family. So please, thank you. Now, before I move on any further, there's a young man just over 30 who wants to join the party.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to introduce you to some very special guests from Pleasurewood Hill. Please welcome Clarence the Cat, Ronnie the Raccoon, and Woody Bear!
Hello, hello, hello! Hello, everyone!
Well, hello there. Marvellous to see you.
Hey there, folks! It's lovely to be here and join you all for Joe's special day. And look, my old friends Ronnie the Raccoon and Clarence the Cat have made it. Say hello, fellas! Hello, boys and girls!
Why, hello there, my darlings. of course I'm sure there's a lot of Clarence fans here today that have followed my career over the last 30 years. Am I right?
Awkward.
Hey, come on, fellas. This is supposed to be a happy occasion.
Oh, I've been the matchday mascot for Beccles Rovers for the last few years. Up the raccoons.
How very deadlift.
Oi, don't start that,
Why
honestly.
such amateurs?
You've got to get it where you
Fellas,
can.
fellas, come on. It doesn't matter where you've been or what you've done. The main thing is that you're back here now.
Oh, yeah, I suppose you're right, Woody.
Yes, you are right. Some things never change, eh?
Thanks, fellas. And hey, everyone is just delighted to see us all back at Pleasurewood Hills. Isn't that right, folks?
Oh. So what have you been up to lately then, Woody?
Yes. Where have you been treading the boards?
Me? Oh, I never left Pleasurewood Hills. It's the only place for me. Ever since Joe Larter opened the doors back in 1983, I've been so happy to call it home. You can read all about it in Joe's new book. Isn't that right, Joe?
That's right, Woody, although you did look different in those days.
What? You mean my outfit?
Yeah, smarter.
Well, just hold the fort for a moment, Joe. I'll be right back. Hey, why don't you tell a joke or do that funny elephant dance you used to do in the pub back in the day? That always brought the house down.
These are my kids. You can't take them anywhere.
Okay, I'm ready. Here I come.
That's marvelous.
Does this bring back the memories, Joe?
Certainly does. You look fabulous.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we sing our brand new song, I want you all to put your hands together and give a huge round of applause to Mr. Joe Larter! Yeah! Hey, and I personally want to thank Joe for the last 30 years. They've been the best times of my life. Seeing all of the families who come back year after year and the smiles and memories they take home, well, you just can't get the feeling it can be inside. Hey, and now you can sing our brand new birthday parade song along with me.
Oh, lovely.
Yippee! Yippee!
Hey, come on, everybody. Let's see you clapping your hands and singing along with all of us.
It's like a good fun. Come on, everyone. Join in.
Oh, yeah. Clap your hands. It's going to be brilliant.
Well, look at us, like three birds of a feather. The gang are all together again.
All right, yeah.
The fun began in 1983. There was you
And him.
Not me.
not them.
We all took our own journey. We each went our own way.
That's right.
But we're bringing back the magic for our 30th birthday.
All right.
It's our birthday parade. Our birthday parade. Where dreams come true for you and happy memories are made. So let's dance and sing with the magic we bring to Pleasurewood Hills and the birthday parade.
Come on again.
It's our birthday parade. Our birthday parade. Where dreams come true for you and happy memories are made. So let's dance and sing with the magic we bring to Pleasurewood Hills and the birthday parade. One more time. It's our birthday parade. Our birthday parade. Where dreams come true for you and happy memories are made. So let's dance and sing with the magic we bring to Pleasurewood Hills and the birthday parade. All right.
Whoa, yeah, all right. Hey, come on, folks. Give yourselves a great big cheer.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, that was delicious.
delightful. Hey, thank you all for coming to see us and joining in with our birthday celebrations. It's been great to see you guys once again.
Oh, thanks, Woody. It's been so nice to be back.
Oh, yes. Splendid. Absolutely splendid. Thank you for asking.
Say, why don't you fellas stick around for a while? I'm sure we'd have a whole heap of fun.
Well, I don't see why not.
Oh, that seems like a good idea.
Well, that's it then. It's a deal. Hey, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and come back to Pleasurewood Hills and see us, all of us, real soon. Bye for now. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you nice to see you again. Great, fellas. Come on, let's go.
Quite a character. I call him Lowestoft's Mickey Mouse, actually. Now, before he disappears, and we're not letting him go home yet, I would like another much younger man, Harry Derbyshire, to come up onto the stage as we have a little gift for him. Harry is the number one Pleasurewood Hills fan. So here it is. And somebody's got what I'm going to give them, haven't they? Hi, Harry. Okay. Yes. In a minute, I'm going to have what I'm going to give you, but I don't know. Where's the lady with the packet? Here it comes. Here it comes.
Not the lady, but...
No, I don't. I realise that. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Good.
I'll leave that to you.
There's a copy of the book. Okay, signed for you, and that's your pass for the whole of next year. Okay. Well done. Thanks. Okay. We had to move on from Pleasureworld, as Pleasureworld, to other developments and trying to develop the company. The next for us to develop were 3 sea life centres, one at Hunstanton, one at Great Yarmouth, and one in Vlissingen in Holland. They also led me to later trying to save a marine life centre under construction in Barbados. More unusually, John and Happy from the Pleasurewood steam train days involved me in building the Bure Valley Railway with them from Wroxham to Aylsham. 8 miles, 15 gauge and steam powered. We planned a great opening.
The plan for the day was for us all to ride from Wroxham to the main Aylsham base and have a tape cutting ceremony and reception there. Bank managers, directors, press, TV and all the great and good were on board with 2 engines to ensure there were no problems. Miles Kington, a great steam enthusiast, was to cut the tape. Problem. Wroxham requires an uphill start from the station, and that's something we didn't manage. One of the more embarrassing moments in my business life was to see the staff, directors and anyone we could get, including me, leave the train to push. All taken in great humour, as a 15-inch narrow gauge is really quite small, but something we could have done without.
Looking for new attractions all the time, I found an American franchise, Ripley's Believe It or Not, a sort of Guinness Book of Records brought to life. Mr. Ripley was an American who travelled the world collecting the weird, the wonderful, the biggest, the tallest, the shortest, the smallest, anything unique. We brought it all to life in the old Windmill Theatre in Great Yarmouth. Perhaps in quality the best attraction I ever constructed, and with a great opening night, including having part of the newly demolished Berlin Wall there. We had a great opening, having hired Christopher Greener, an accountant, who is the tallest man in the UK at 7 foot 6 1/4 inches. Since Ripley's is a walk-round attraction, we could not have the usual tape-cutting ceremony with a mass entry, especially in June, when Great Yarmouth season had already started. Chris and I greeted everybody at the entrance, with our guests then going to the Sea Life Centre restaurant opposite for our reception. At one point, a little girl dipped under the protective barrier and asked Chris if she could have his autograph, because, she said, "You are the tallest man in the world." He gladly obliged, and then she handed me the book, standing 5'3" to his 7'6¼ and said, "And you must be the smallest man in the world, so can I have your autograph as well?" Which I gladly gave her. At various times, I've started a school, I've been involved in raising money for charities and other good causes, and a theatre or two, including this one, and some fun times doing that. Involvement with other investors took me to Barbados to try to rescue another beautiful marine life development with some wonderful people, but we simply could not make that one work. However, I got hooked into raising funds for the Barbados Heart and Stroke Foundation.
During our time on the island, Patricia, our manager, and I organised a charity event in aid of the Barbados Heart and Stroke Foundation. Maybe with our experiences at Ocean Park, one of us was going to need them. The team there taught me about the Chinese auction as a way to raise money. Basically, all the bids are the same value and you pay in cash on the spot. We were in a rented home on Sugar Hill where Cliff Richard lived, and I got an idea of him helping us raise money the following year. I wrote to Cliff and asked, could I offer for auction a game of tennis with Cliff Richard, with of course my ulterior motive being to buy the game for Bessie, my very keen tennis-playing wife. Cliff replied immediately and said, yes, of course, make it a foursome on his own court and he would give us some champagne afterwards on the terrace. I bought it for Bessie and afterwards had to tell Cliff there would be 5 for champagne as I did not play tennis. A great evening with a truly genuine man.
Pleasurewood led us to Pleasureworld plc becoming a public company, and then to a takeover by another company, leading to a huge disaster, a fraud I call it, but we had to move on again. New Pleasureworld, more but different Dutch involved, Seaforth Travel and ATP Travel, the dot-com bubble, and then to New Zealand. I like it. When we reached Rex, who owned Framingham Vineyard in Blenheim, the top of South Island, he showed us around the grape-growing areas. I noticed, as builders do, a small 10-acre property with a nice house, growing cherries, and a for sale by auction board outside. Seeing my looks, Rex said he would buy and develop it for me if I was interested. Betty, kicking me in the shins at the time because of the distance involved. Back in the UK, Rex called me up. He thought the auction price for the 10 acres would be as silly in New Zealand terms, so he told me he had located 20 acres of land with a house and a barn adjoining a new planting area of his own in Kaituna on the River Wairo, and would I consider buying that 50-50 with a lady winemaker who worked for him. I could not immediately go back to New Zealand, so I had to trust his judgment without either seeing the purchase or meeting my proposed partner. I did return the following year, and from that purchase came a lovely association with Barry and Shelley Mangos, our partners for over 12 years. We had a great party with 75 people joining us from all over the world in March 2003 to celebrate the first picking of our grapes. I do not have time to take you all through the property owning and business safari that Betty and I have had in the USA, France, Italy, Canada, Alaska, California, Hawaii, an airline we got involved with, to India, to Russia, to Fiji, the Far East, Australia, and many other places. They are all in the book. There are my grandchildren with a couple of familiar characters. What I do want to touch on before I finish is the current business involvement I have in the USA. A group of us invested in a company which went wrong, and my nephew Alex Szymanski first of all helped me out with it and is now the CEO and living with his family in the USA.
Alex came back saying he thought the idea and market had enormous possibilities, but there were some fundamental issues that needed sorting out. He later told me, "You gave me an old Model T Ford in poor condition and asked me to service it. Then you asked me to make it into a BMW with new wheels, engine and bodywork, but I was not allowed to take it off the road while the work was being carried out. That's a pretty fair description of the job he had taken on and handled so well.
And that, ladies and gents, is a very quick and thumbnail sketch of the book and part of my life. I hope you will now join Woody and myself next door, where we'll be signing a book or two if you wish. But before we do that, I cannot finish without a few thanks. First of all, my editor is sitting down there, David Porter, and I want to thank him for his support and encouragement and guidance, particularly in the first couple of years when I, quite frankly, didn't know what the hell I was doing. Maybe when you read the book you'll say I still don't know. Second, Martin Halliday, our theatre chief executive, Jackie, our theatre manager, and last but not least, Carl and his team, who have been responsible for getting these videos and pictures to appear. They put up with me more than is reasonable, and I'm sure they hope that I never write another book. In fact, I can see Martin in the wings on his knees praying. Could you please put your hands together for all the people who have helped me to do this? So, as another couple used to say, it's good night from her.
It's been a great pleasure to be here with you all this evening and to be with Woody Bear and his dad, who of course is my father as well. His other children, Andrew and Rebecca, are in the audience, and my own sister Rose lives in Singapore and is sorry she couldn't be with us. Two people I couldn't arrange to be here were Eamon Andrews and Michael Aspel, but I think someone else has come in their place.
This is Nick Brighouse, the man who dug that first bit of soil on Dip Farm.
Eamon Andrews, no. Nick Brighouse, yes. And it was all those years ago, 30 years ago, that I dug the first sod of Pleasurewood Hills. And we had no idea what would come. What's not gone well for Lowestoft over the last few years? It's been the bridge, traffic chaos, but the big survivors were the Mini Olympics, which I was involved with for many years, the Marina, the Lydia Eva, the Lowestoft Journal. But I think that the biggest survivor of all is Joe and his family. And so it gives me very great pleasure indeed to be able to say, Joe Larter, this is your life.
That's it, folks. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, I'm David Porter. I'm former MP for Waveney, and I've known Joe for many, many years, and he tells such a good story about everything that he's done, and he's done so many things, that when he started to talk about a book for his children and his grandchildren, I knew that he had a story to tell that was of interest to a far wider audience than... He's a great people person, so he always says, have you met this person, have you met that person, and he ties people together in a network that produces results on these great projects. And he's a man of vision and inspiration, and he doesn't take no for an answer. Great drive, personal drive for himself, but he encourages other people to make the best of themselves as well. And that's what I've found so inspiring. And yes, it does have an audience right across the world, because the book is about business. It's about successes and failures.
Excellent. My name is Alexis Cameron. I'm the General Manager and Director of Pleasurewood Hills. It was a great opportunity for us tonight to be here for the launch of Joe Larter book autobiography. It's a great opportunity to know Joe and to know what he's built 30 years ago, what he started 30 years ago. I've been at Pleasurewood Hills for 4 years since a recent takeover, and we've been investing a lot at Pleasurewood Hills to get it back where it should be, where it was 30 years ago.
It's going to be live tomorrow on BBC One or?
No.